In these problems, we're working on finding the inverses of functions. So this first one says, find the equation of the inverse of f of x equals 5x minus 1 over 6. The way I like to do this is first just substitute in a y for f of x. You can think about them being interchangeable, so we're going to just sub it in. That's the first step. Then the second step is to pull what I call the old switcheroo. You switch the places of the x and the y. So instead of y equals 5x minus 1 over 6, we get x equals 5y minus 1 over 6. And the next step is to try to solve for y again. So let's do that. I would multiply by 6 first. I'd get 6x equals 5y minus 1. I would add 1 to each side. I would get 6x plus 1 equals 5y. Then I'd divide by 5. And I would get, I'm going to just flip this around, y equals 6x plus 1 over 5. And now I can replace that y with f of x, or actually in this case, I'm going to replace it with f minus 1 of x. That minus 1 denotes the inverse, is 6x plus 1 over 5. So just to review, I subbed in a y for the f of x in the original function. I pulled the old switcheroo. I switched around the x and y in the equation. Then I solved it for y, and that is my inverse. Let's try another one. So find the equation of the inverse of f of x equals 3x minus 5 over 7. So I'm going to do the same thing. Y instead of f of x equals 3x minus 5 divided by 7. Then pull the old switcheroo. X equals 3y minus 5 over 7. Now solve for y. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 7. I get 7x equals 3y minus 5. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. I get 7x plus 5 equals 3y. Then I'm going to divide by 3. And I get y equals 7x plus 5 divided by 3. And then I'll sub back in my function notation, but the inverse, 7x plus 5 divided by 3. And that is my answer. All right, let's try one more. And this one's got a little extra added twist. It says, find the inverse of f of x equals 14x squared, and then determine if the inverse is a function. Well, we're going to go about this in the same way. So we'll start with y equals 14x squared. Then we'll pull the old switcheroo. So I've got x equals 14y squared. And then we'll solve that for y. So I'll divide by 14 first. And then, so I've got, let me actually turn this around the other way, y squared equals x over 14. To solve for y, I've got to take the square root of both sides. So on the left I get y, and on the right I get a positive or negative, hope you remembered that, square root of x over 14. And I think we can stop there. And what, I'm not going to worry about a radical in the denominator, but what we've got here is a plus or minus. And you should know that for something to be a function, y's got to have just one value for any value of x. And here it's always going to have two. It's always going to have a positive and a negative value. So in this case, it's not a function. So that is a little bit about finding the inverses of functions.